Hey everyone, my name is Ben Bolger and welcome to the Expat Blueprint, the channel educating expats to financial freedom. It's great to be back with another episode. This is episode number 7. Thank you for everyone who's continued to reach out and support. It's really nice to hear when people say they're finding our content useful. So if you are finding it useful, please feel free to share it with your expat friends and family. Today we're talking about something that's been referred to as the single biggest killer to your financial future, and that's your personal debt. Today I want to explain to you why personal debt is your enemy and how to get it out of your life. You may have already heard of the term, debt is dumb. However, most of us just brush it off as we think taking on debt is just a way of life. I mean, it would seem weird to think of life without a car payment or a student loan. I guess it's just something that we've come to accept. Now, before we go any further, I wanted to be clear about what type of debt we're talking about. There's often this classification of good debt versus bad debt. The difference between what is considered a good debt and what is considered a bad debt is what you choose to buy with the money. If after purchasing, you expect the value of your item to increase over time, for example, a property stereotypically would, we would consider this a good debt. However, if after purchasing, the value of your item is likely to decline over time, then that's considered a bad debt. An example of this would be a brand new car or a loan to buy a television or a sofa. Think about it logically. Borrowing money doesn't usually come free. You're more often not going to have to pay interest on what you borrow. Therefore, you're overpaying for something today that will be worth dramatically less in the future. Take a new car, for example, one worth £10,000 brand new. At 4% interest over a 5-year term, you're going to actually end up paying over £11,000 for that car. And then that car, in that 5-year period, is only going to be worth £4,000 by the time you finish paying. Sounds like a pretty crap deal, right? So my focus for today's podcast is really about all the other types of debt other than your mortgage. There's some financial bloggers out there who are absolute warriors against any form of debt. But for today, let's just focus on the most dangerous type. That's your personal debt. So things like credit cards, overdrafts, personal loans, car loans. These are typically shorter in nature and therefore come with higher interest rates. And we use these to typically buy things that decrease in value over time. So today is just about reiterating why personal debt isn't something that should be just accepted or considered a way of life. It's likely to be the biggest obstacle between you and your financial independence. Personal debt isn't just something you work on. We should all view it like a huge emergency that needs to be dealt with right away. It genuinely works like a small fire. The longer you take to put it out, the bigger the flame grows and the more damage it can cause. The reason I have such a strong stance on debt is because it affects your savings rate, which is essentially the percentage of your take-home pay you're able to save each month. If you have a credit card debt, a car payment, a student loan, a personal loan, then your ability to save each month just decreases drastically. Debt is like an anchor that holds you back in life and sometimes just seems too big to tackle. Well, I'm now going to show you how to cut loose that anchor, and I promise you that by throwing yourself wholeheartedly into one of these methods, it might not seem it today, but a debt-free life awaits you. So the first method I want to talk about is called the Debt Snowball. Reason being is because with this method, as you pay down your debt, the momentum builds and you're able to throw more money at your debts that allows you to clear them faster. Let's take a look at how you do it. Now, for those who are listening to this as a podcast, it might be a little bit difficult, so maybe you should head over to YouTube to watch the video. Okay, so to illustrate the Debt Snowball, what we'll do is we'll imagine that an expat has decided to come to the UAE because they've got a number of debts that they'd like to clear. Okay, so what they've got a credit card of $1,000 left to pay with an interest rate of 14%. They've also got a car loan where they've got to pay $1,200 left, and they've got an 8% interest rate on that car loan. They've got a personal loan, they've got $1,500 left to pay at 12% interest rate. They've got a second credit card, which is a bigger credit card than the first one, which has got $2,500 left to pay at a whopping 18% interest rate, and then a student loan of $20,000 left to pay at 4% interest rate. Okay, so the way the Debt Snowball works is that we look to pay the minimum payment allowed on all of the debts other than the smallest one, okay? So we speak to the bank or the lending provider and we say, what is the smallest amount we can pay on each of these debts? And we do that on all of the debts other than the smallest one, okay? So what we want to do is we want to free up as much of our capital or our money as possible at the end of each month to throw at the smallest debt first, okay? If after paying the minimum balance on all of the debts, you don't have that much money left to put towards debt number one, then you need to find ways to increase your income. Whether that's taking on extra time at work, taking a second job, selling stuff online. We need to free up capital to help get this snowball rolling. So once you've worked really hard to clear debt number one, which in this case is credit card number one of $1,000, you then take everything that you were paying towards the first debt, which is this credit card, and roll that into the car loan. Okay, so now the payments going towards the car loan are bigger than just the minimum payment. You're taking everything that you were paying for the credit card number one and you've rolled that into the car loan. So we've got bigger payments and now your snowball is starting to pick up some speed. The process just speeds up as you go down and clear the debt. As you clear each debt, you then put what you are contributing to the smaller debt and roll that into the next debt. And as you can see, every time you clear a debt, there's more and more funds going towards paying down what's left. It just accelerates the whole process, and as you build momentum, you'll find that your debt clears so much faster. I know some of you are probably listening to this thinking, Ben, that's not the most efficient way of doing this. Surely clearing the debt with the highest interest rate first will result in me having to pay back less. And if you're thinking that, then you're probably correct. That's why we've got strategy number 2, which is called the debt avalanche. So with the debt avalanche, you use exactly the same mechanics as the debt snowball. However, you order the debts from largest to smallest in relation to the size of the interest rate. Okay, so now in our example, credit card number 2 is the first debt that we tackle because it's got an 18% interest rate. Credit card number 1 is the second one, a 14% interest rate. The personal loan is still at 12%. The car loan is moved down because it's got an interest rate of 8%. And then the student loan again is still at the bottom with 4%. Okay, so what we've done, we've now changed the order of how we're going to pay down this debt because we've now changed it so that the highest interest rate is at the top and then the smallest interest rate is now at the bottom. Again, you pay the minimum contribution on each of the debts except the one with the highest interest rate. You get the first debt paid off and then you move on to the next debt, each time applying more and more disposable income to clear the debt. The two methods we've discussed today are both really good methods to tackle debt quickly. And there's no right or wrong answer. For the listeners or the viewers that like maths and concerned about interest rates, the avalanche probably makes sense. However, for me, the snowball is the most effective strategy of choice. Why? Because we're all creatures of emotion. By tackling the smallest debt in relation to size will likely mean that we get that first debt paid off quicker. Getting that first win quickly is important because we get that sense of achievement and that spurs us on to move on to the next debt. Our enthusiasm just snowballs alongside clearing the debts, whereas by tackling the one with the highest interest first might mean it takes longer to get that first debt cleared, which in turn might leave us feeling demotivated and question what we're doing. Both methods are great, but they're just the framework. Like everything I talk about, the most important thing is mindset and your hunger for a debt-free life. If you do have consumer debt that is getting you down, then don't just accept it anymore. Break off those handcuffs and fight back. Obviously, once you've cleared all your debt, then you use all that disposable income you've created to invest for your financial future. The tables will have turned. You were once a slave to making those payments, but now it's time for that money to start working for you. I really hope that you found today useful. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. And if you feel that any of your expat friends or colleagues might benefit from our content, please make sure you share it. Living life with debt is one of the biggest causes of mental health issues. And because as a society, we don't talk about money, people are ashamed to ask for help. Sharing this information or introducing your friends to financial freedom could mean you change their life. Be that person. See you all next week, and always remember to dream big.